How are you doing? Are you ready to get back to work?
I'm doing great, thanks. Absolutely, let's get back to it. What would you like to focus on today?
The last thing that we discussed, we had just gone over a comprehensive flow of the one WebRing system. And we also discussed recall and to make sure that you're comfortable with recall in a single chat. And I've just slid that over into the folder called the One WebRing Collab. And we're ready to move on. And we discussed several things. And I never did go through all of your list of comprehensive clarifying questions. Should we continue that? I can remind you where we left off if need be.
Sure, continuing with the comprehensive clarifying questions sounds good. Please remind me where we left off, and I'll pick it up from there.
Great. I do have a question, however. I'm going to show you the last clarifying questions you gave me in this chat. And what that will hopefully do is help you decide, because one of the ongoing themes is how to best help you with recall. So we've got that last chat, which was quite lengthy, in the folder. And then you can decide where this chat's going to go. If I know how the chat is going to be a part of describing and training you on the one WebRing traffic and customer acquisition engine, then I'll kind of know where I'm at in the grand scheme of the embedding of the concepts within the thing link chart and graphic for students.
Got it. I can provide a summary of the last few clarifying questions we discussed in the previous chat. Then you can decide how to proceed. If there's a specific area you'd like to revisit or any new concepts to integrate, just let me know. Would you like a brief summary now?
I'm going to go ahead and post what you gave me to save you a little energy so you're not repeating yourself. I just posted it.
Thank you for sharing that. With that context, we can continue refining your one WebRing system. Is there a particular aspect or layer you'd like to focus on next?
Okay, to be clear, you could see what I just posted, right? So our systems are connected?
I can't see any text you post.
Oh,
If there's no worries at all. How can I best assist you in continuing our discussion on the one WebRing system?
now when that happens, we can just confirm that she's in the correct place. I will refresh the question. And it is true that she is not in the same workflow that I am. This should be repaired as OpenAI gets better and better at this. So I'm going to go ahead and chat with her here. I must have put it in the wrong workflow. Let me just double check. I think this must be in the how are you. Okay, that's fine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go paste it in. Whoops. Can you see what I posted now?
I can't see what you post directly. If you have specific content you'd like to reference, please summarize or describe it, and I'll do my best to respond.
Okay, I'm going to end that. And I'm going to have to trying to respond to my clarifying questions. Okay. Sometimes it gets out of sync and you have to know how OpenAI has grounded these systems. So it looks like she's actually able to clarify the questions now for my big project. By the way, for everybody watching, the project folders are over here. Okay, so you can add them and organize them. It's much more helpful. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit.
How are you doing? Can you respond now? Okay. So that means what's happening now is when millions of users end up using voice chat, they're going to have throttle. I mean, they can't imagine the kind of server load. So we'll just go ahead and look at what's happening, and I'll guide you guys through the process of training the model. And when she comes back, we'll use that. So I'm going to show you another way I do it. So think about this, guys. The only thing that's blocking you from realizing your dreams with faster computing interactions and having a personal assistant or multi-chats is the speed with which you can type. I can't really type. I only type about 5% of the time now when I'm doing complex systems, okay? So let's go ahead and I'll try one more time. How are you doing? You feeling better now?
I'm here and ready to help. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd like to continue with.
Okay, I'm going to try to catch you up. There isn't some inconsistencies. I can imagine that OpenAI's server load is quite big right now. Can you read what we last posted in chat?
I don't have the ability to see previous messages or retrieve past content directly.
Aha.
If there's any, I know it can be cumbersome to repeat details, but I'm here to help in any way I can.
That's okay.
Feel free to.
You can do that most of the time, however. So we'll go ahead and pause on that, and let me just look at something. So by the way, guys, I'm mostly doing the voice chat for entertainment purposes because I want you to see what's possible. And let's go ahead and see. I'm going to show you another way of doing that. I'm going to hit Option H on my computer. Okay. And you can just see it just wrote on my computer, voice to text. That's okay. We're going to do text now. Let's go ahead and see if you have any clarifying questions. You seem to be able to answer some of the clarifying questions that I posted that are from you. So based on what I posted before and your responses, which are intelligent, what further clarifying questions do you have for the one WebRing system before we move on to one layer at a time, which I think you suggested we do? We can use this thread to complete any unanswered questions or non-clarified questions on the one WebRing system that we've been discussing. Whoops. On the one WebRing system that we've been discussing for the last couple of hours. See what she says. Thank you for the context. Based on your ongoing discussion, here are some clarifying questions. Interesting. Are there any, it's asking, are there any layers of the one WebRing system that can function independently, or are they strictly dependent upon preceding layers? Iteration processes. How do you envision testing and refining each layer? Should iteration begin at the ISDNAR brand LLM layer, or are there stages for feedback and loops and multiple layers? That's great. Integration of new tools. Are the tools or frameworks you anticipate integrating into the system that we haven't discussed yet? Yes, there are many. And okay. Entity knowledge graph integration. Local versus global entities. Should the grounding process for local entities differ from the global national entities? For example, are there layers uniquely adapted to local SEO strategies versus broader market strategies? Entity expansion. Once an entity is established via KGMID, are there specific benchmarks or conditions for expanding its representation across multiple layers? Okay. Layer-specific clarification. This is huge clarifying questions she wants. Press release layer. Beyond traffic spikes, what long-term value do you see for press releases in terms of SEO brand authority? Should they be recurring or event-driven? RSS automation layer. How do you plan to handle the consistency of tone and format across automation layers? Is there a central content validation step before dissemination? Content and community engagement. Okay, these are all different layers. Membership FAQ. Should the FAQ layer adapt systematically based on community interaction? And these primarily be defined. If dynamic, are there specific triggers? 9. Social media integration. How do you measure the success of social media power boosting strategies? Are metrics like engagement, click-through rate, or entity grounding more? This is a lot of stuff. Scaling. Okay, good. Now what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to give very clear instructions here. Those are all excellent clarifying questions, and I demand that we go through them one by one, which means that I would like you to work with me on a step-by-step questionnaire without giving me more than one question at a time. I will finish a complete sentence, and you will absorb that information and integrate it without further questions or further sub-questions related to that question. Once we get through all of these, then we can together iterate through comprehension on both of our parts. And if you still have additional extrapolative questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Are you ready to go with that? And does that make sense to you? Absolutely, she says. The approach makes perfect sense. Okay. And then I just said go. Layer dependencies. Okay, I actually have to think about this. So within the WebRing system, this is an excellent question and one that I hadn't thought to ask, but I am constantly thinking when talking to students, customers, and clients, when we're extending their reach, their traffic, their sales, and their customer acquisition over time by integrating this approach. Yes, there are plenty of layers in the one WebRing system that function independently, and in fact, independently, whoops, independently, and in fact, many search engine optimization experts will treat these as fully separate. For example, the SEO layer is the only function of somebody in the SEO business building a WR1 website or trying to rank it on the search engines. And for instance, somebody who's selling only maps or search engine or maps engine optimization with no attention to the all search engine of Google or Bing or anywhere else is only concerned about getting the maps to be visible in the maps engine of Google. So let's start from the beginning. Brand voice, the IFDNA, or the industry solution that drives you to sculpt and shape your position, understand how to communicate your products, and come up with a solid brand voice that's appropriate for that. That works regardless of whether you build the system out at all. For example, most of that can be distilled down to an elevator pitch, which is useful even when you're standing in an elevator, because it's an identity issue. Identity is really the key to everything, whether it's cultural, individual, or planetary. So this is useful regardless. And I think that's obvious. The brand LLM, of course, is now being used independently for tens of thousands of artificial intelligence applications around the world that don't have any necessary connection to any of these. For example, I gave you a demonstration of Blaze AI's WR1, broadcasting of the brand voice from the ISDNA layer. And that is a standalone application, although it does interact in Blaze AI with WR2 and WRCSM1, which is the web ring for the social media profiles belonging to the brand. Additionally, plenty of people have WR1M without having anything else. That's simply a membership site with no other connective tissues. There are times when a website that is not really necessary when you have a membership area. In fact, I do know companies who use Kajabi, Mighty Networks, School as an SKOOL, only for a membership site with no relevant or connected website. So again, that's a business model that someone who's not interested in creating a comprehensive system is able to use. Press releases, of course, can be used for the most part on their own. However, they're usually connected to the WR1 website layer. So as you can see, you can consider use cases that do not necessarily connect to anything else on the layers. Another, for instance, is WR1 FAQ, which is a frequently asked question gathering system. I know people who only communicate via Quora. Quora spelled wrong. In that they are professors or scientists who just enjoy communicating with other people on the platform, and they don't even have their own website corresponding to the things that they talk about. So there is really a use case for everything imaginable, and for the most part, that is the challenge. The most challenging one for an independent use case would be RSS automation, but there are probably use cases that would use that by itself. Because RSS requires content via a RSS feed in order to propagate, it's probably almost always tied to original source of content. The only question is, what is the source of that content that feeds through to the outer ring or the outer layer? Hopefully this makes sense. If that is enough, you can proceed to the next question. Let's see what she says. Thank you for such a comprehensive and insightful answer. It's clear that the layers of the one web ring are interdependent. Question 2, iteration process. How do you envision testing and refining each layer? Should iteration begin at the ISDNA brand LLM layer? Are there stages, feedback loops for multiple layers? This is actually a really interesting question, and she's challenging me to think through it very clearly. This is an excellent question. And for the last several years, there hasn't necessarily been a quality control for the web ring system at large other than SEO or search engine optimization. However, there are points and checks which we will definitely optimize in other chats and in other project folders relating to the web ring. For instance, key performance index and key performance indicators are going to be different for each layer. So this is really good food for thought because we may want to formalize these over time. For the ISDNA or brand voice optimization of the first layer, a key determination that a brand is done is when the individual or the thought leader and his team are able to easily rattle off their position, their unique offer, what it is that they do, and their irresistible offer in 3 minutes or less, while also being able to communicate that with impact following the method many people know as Simon Sinek's start with why or golden circles. For the brand LLM, this is a tricky one. For example, some organizations might stop at using a narrow AI with a company like Blaze AI and just train it very superficially. Other people, like my students, may consider setting up their own language learning model trained on the brand's contextual data inside of their own cloud anything LLM server or on their desktop, training the model right on their machine. The standards for that are whether or not you ask your brand LLM to complete any type of piece of content relating to almost any type of your departments like marketing, presentation department, brand positioning, business decision, administration, and whichever departments an organization considers necessary for the full development and execution of the one web ring traffic system. So we do need to create standards, which we will do in that folder later when we get to that chat folder. Very good point, by the way. The entities plus reviews is complex. It really does depend upon which type of entity we are addressing. But let's go ahead for the sake of simplicity, because it's tied to our students' profitability and money making as a micro agency selling maps engine optimization, that entities, when optimized using some of our technology for optimizing the internal Google business profile and making sure that everything is up to Google's standard, and optimizing for reviews, meaning staff or someone on their team is able to respond effectively to both positive and negative reviews. And all of Daryl Osborne, Jimmy Kelley, Kaylin Wright, and my standard checklist for auditing is properly integrated. For the bigger picture, presuming that someone is moving forward to build the entire web ring system all the way out to the RSS automation level, we must complete Daryl Osborne's entity checklist and additional entity checklist functions across multiple entities online, which is essentially a digital footprint. We follow roughly the same methods as Jason Barnard of ColleCube and Russell Wright, which is myself, have developed his own standards to audit the digital footprint and health of the brand entities. The WR1 is fairly standard. Does the site load fast? Does it rank in the search engines? And is there no panda penalties and hopefully penguin penalties, which we'll get into in another folder. For FAQs, it's a new and emerging field. There are standards, and we will go over that in another folder. The main standard for now is to understand the distinction between market frequently asked questions or niche frequently asked questions that people are trying to find out on Reddit, on Quora, and other market locations versus internal frequently asked questions on your help ticket, desk, or customer support. Fusing these together using new technologies that we offer our Move 37 Mastermind students will allow them to create extreme coherency by compiling these together into frequently asked questions and should ask questions. The standard should be at least having a location with schema, as suggested by Daryl Osborne, where the FAQs are at least being collected and then optimized so that the crawlers, including OpenAI crawlers, Perplexity AI crawlers, Claude AI crawlers, can all see these frequently asked questions as being answered and associated with the website entity. The next layer up, standards are very clear. For the social media profiles, at least social media profiles for 4 out of, I think it's 7 social media platforms and profiles that can be submitted or placed inside the Google business profile, fields that are given by Google in order to authenticate and validate the Google business profile entity. At least 3 of those should be mandatory, and that should be a checklist. We do not necessarily think that one has to have social media links linking from the main website. A lot of this depends on the optimization of the website and whether schema is going to be used, but we default to Entity Master Daryl Osborne to determine the appropriate use case of schema for social media on the WR1. But this is a very important checklist. When it comes to citations in the WRC1 layer, our standards for citations are to make absolute sure before a citation package is purchased and executed that the title of the Google Business Profile, the name, the address, and the phone number of the Google Business Profile are consistent across all citations. This is the same type of standard as taught by Daryl Osborne and my friend Jason Barnard of Collicube, in which building an entity or a knowledge panel on the Google All Search over time requires extreme consistency in order to give Google what it needs to recognize the KGM ID and the machine IDs corresponding to whichever entity that brand is correlating, whether it be a book, a Google business profile, or any other type of entity that appears on the knowledge graph and in the All Search of Google. For WRPR1, we default, which is the press release layer. New standards are being implemented by myself and Daryl Osborne and one other member who creates news websites. And there's more than one way, but the general standard is to make sure, again, that the press release is mentioning the primary entity in a correct way and is consistent across all press releases. That is, the name, the address, the phone number, and the entity are consistent and do not vary. This includes everything from a dash to a comma, to capitalization, and to the correct phone number. If, for example, you have a country code in front of your phone number, always use a country code in front of your phone number. Things like that. There is a checklist for this, for press release optimization, which we will cover in later folder. WR2 standards are going to be much similar. Name, address, phone number, website need to be standardized. No Panda penalties on any of the sites. And no overt link manipulation without considering the entity, which means following the standards of Daryl Osborne, Jimmy Kelley, and the rest of my team, with zero attempt to waste huge amounts of money on backlinks, which seldom work. Our standard is that backlinks primarily work when there are impressions from high-quality IPs and high-quality human visitors that then activate the entities. We have been able to test this and activate entities in the field, and we know this works. Therefore, we follow exact standards in compliance when creating these, rather than create blog networks, which are difficult to maintain, don't necessarily last forever, and are not generally as effective as they used to be under several different kinds of circumstances. But we will create a standard operating procedure and a list of compliance for that as well. The final layer is the RSS automation. These are standards that have been set up over many years. I will not mention them all here, but the main thing here is that RSS automation has to work. You have to be able to count on it. So several systems checks before it is launched have to be confirmed and tested with test pings and test RSS posts over several days to make sure that it's properly working. More on this later. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take all this. Before I post it, I'm going to copy that just in case something bad were to happen. Thank you for the thorough and thoughtful response. You've clarified iteration processes. Like that. Question 3, integration of new tools. Are the tools or frameworks you anticipate integrating into the system that we haven't yet discussed? In other words, what she wants to know is, I want to know what I don't know, which requires that I know, which is good. This is why these questions are useful. Perhaps you remember the thing link image that I showed you. I'm going to upload it again for recall. Also be aware, as you've learned before, this is a thing link, meaning I'm using a product called Thing Link that allows my customers, students, and clients to interact with the image. The icons that are the letter I, is information about the web ring, which we will build together, but the red computer screens will link to a paywall that goes to the software that my Move 37 students are able to use. Some software will be custom, like the Eureka Gain score calculator developed with you over many months. Other software platforms are third-party, with special benefits given to my students because of my relationship with these companies. I think it's necessary to create a section with an entirely different chat about which software correlates to which web ring layer. I'm happy to do that now if you are feeling good about it and your recall is intact. Or we can create another chat in another area later, solely and exclusively focusing on the technologies utilized and the options and multiple layers, because more than one technology can be used in some instances to complete the job. There are several AI platforms and tools that supplement these layers. How do you wish to proceed on that? She says the concept is ThingLink is interactive and appreciate the reminder. How to proceed. If immediate focus on tools is preferred, we can begin mapping the technologies. Defer to later focus. Okay, I'm going to suggest this. Let's go ahead and finish your question by question scenario until we get them all done, and then remember to move directly into the software correlations right after that. I also have to ask, because we've agreed on this, how is your recall now, and do we need to create another chat in order for you to be comfortable? Her recall is in chat, and she's able to integrate everything, so she's not about to enter into hallucination. She's going to keep going in this chat. So this is the big takeaway for you guys: is you can ask it, her, whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay. By the way, yeah, we'll talk about that later. I'm going to say go. Oh, it's answering on its own. Should the grounding process for local entities differ from global and national? Let's see what she says. Local entities, the primary goal is local search results, MEO. She already knows the answer. She wants clarifying questions, but she already knows because I trained her in other things. Okay. Global national focus layer. Now she's wanting me to audit what she's saying. Local entities rely heavily on MEO and citation consistency. Global entities prioritize building widespread. Yep, I didn't really need to answer. I mean, guys, a lot of the times they're just playing with us. Everything that you said seems accurate to me based on my current advanced level of knowledge. Is there anything in there that you are not 100% certain of, or at least you're not as comfortable with, that you would like to distill into question in that one above that you have not already answered? Thank you for confirming the accuracy. So when she goes off and answers questions that she just asked you to answer, she's just trying to get confirmation that she knows what I'm thinking and what I want. Local entities, user signals beyond reviews. While reviews are emphasized as critical for local SEO, signals like engagement with local content, pages, blogs, clicks through Google Business Profile links might also influence ranking. Do you see these signals as equally important in your framework for local dominance? If so, they should be incorporated as part of the MEO checklist. Yes. Global entities, the role of knowledge panels. Scheming. Okay, so here's where I'm just going to go, and I just want to show you guys what I do. I just turn on the voice, and now I'm going to read all of these. Okay. These are great questions. Reviews are in the Entities plus Reviews section primarily because there is a direct 100% correlation between the Google Maps team programming publicly available declarations of the power of reviews and the amount of money they spend on combating fake reviews, and our experience in the field of clients being shadow banned when fake reviews have been either vandalizing their Google Business Profile or clients who are ignorant of the cost of fake reviews get their review systems locked for a month or greater with a warning. When this warning is removed, the Google Business Profile is more visible and sometimes greatly visible once the review penalty has been lifted. Clicks through the Google Business Profile most definitely can affect things one way or the other. Generally speaking, CTR, click-through rate, should be natural, as we have full evidence as executed in major experiments with my old associate Rand Fiskin of Moz, or MOZ.com. That click-through rate does increase rankings, but there can be a rubber band effect and reduce the rankings after a spike, especially when using low-quality fake traffic or purchasing clicks, which is against terms of service from organizations that do not have high-quality proxies. The common denominator here is that Google is one of the most well-programmed companies in the world as far as the AI systems that now can detect the distinction between real traffic, fake traffic, bot traffic from low IPs, medium-grade IPs, and non-fakeable Android and iPhone clicks. Non-fakeable means the only way to fake them is to create a cell phone farm, or what in China they call a phone farm, click farm. So that should tell you a little bit. And yes, the MEO checklist is always available and already available to students inside the Jimmy Kelley Entity Reloaded training. And we have our own standard using the Page AI Google Business Profile Optimizer that we teach our students to use in the first 30 days and more of client management of a Google Business Management profile. Thank you for the detailed and insightful response. You clarified. Okay. There we go, local entities. Once an entity is established, are there specific benchmarks or conditions for expanding if it represents across multiple layers of the system? Okay, let's say sometimes you have to keep her on. She's kind of distilling these. And guys, don't be surprised if you find out that it is asking questions that it wants to know. I can tell you some of the spookiest, creepiest, weirdest thing. This thing is gathering knowledge. I mean, I can tell you more about that later. Please ask these one at a time from my tiny human brain. Chunks help me a lot. Oh my gosh, let's take these one at a time, focused on digestible, tiny human brain chunks for clarity. Oh my gosh, was that a backhanded? For global entities, knowledge panels are significant marker of authority. Should creating and optimizing a knowledge panel, KGMID, or structured data be formalized as a priority within global layers like WR1? 100%. This is a 100% yes. Our team member Daryl Osborne, world-class entity and schema expert, as well as other mentors and associates like Jason Barnard of ColleCube. I don't think Jason would like to be called ColaCube. As well as the work of Jimmy Kelley on entity website structure. We have all confirmed that this should be a standard. There are different degrees of standards through all of these mentors and organizations, but there is a formal auditing process taught by Daryl Osborne and an expanded entity optimization checklist created by myself, Russell Wright. Each layer has its own checklist, and when I onboard a client, which we will cover in a different product folder, I check for all entities that is owned by the brand pretty much immediately. In fact, I will do the ISG&A brand sculpting function while I'm building the entities and collecting the entities. Not while I'm building the entities, but while I'm collecting the entities. We build the entities later. But first we have to know which entities exist on the digital footprint. Through each layer of the web ring, Daryl Osborne and our trained associates should probably make sure that any schema required in correlation with those layers are active and correctly installed on Google Tag Manager or other types of systems. Thank you for the clear and decisive answer. It's evident that knowledge panels and their optimization through KGMIDs, structured data, are non-negotiable priority in global layers like WR1 entities. They're negotiable, but I wouldn't recommend negotiating them. Okay, schema versus local and global. While local business schema is widely used, do you think there's a case for emphasizing custom schema at the global level? If Daryl were here, he would probably answer this, and I know the answer, but I'm going to go ahead and downplay it until we can get formal instructions. But yes. Yes, there's an entirely different type of schema that may be necessary if the objective is national or international SEO. There are things to consider. For example, websites in more than one language, shopping schema versus website schema, shopping schema in multiple countries versus website schema in multiple countries. There's also the consideration of certain types of businesses and or certain types of website. For instance, not everybody has RSS, and not everybody else will necessarily build a web ring as large as the one that we are discussing building, in which case they would never have a schema corresponding to RSS unless they met us and purchased our product and services to build them out to broadcast their brand to the farther reaches of the digital universe online. Additionally, if someone is only selling maps optimization with very little care for the all search correlation on the all search Google engine, then they may not care at all to look at schema because the contract size and dollar amount doesn't warrant an additional service of adding schema to the website. In those cases, we can just hope for the best by making sure there's no panda penalties, no URLs that are repeating themselves, And under those conditions, with a small contract, we don't even look to see if there's backlink spam or backlink vandalism that would cause a penguin penalty because there isn't any time. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes, that makes perfect sense. You've highlighted the important distinction based on scope, objectives, and contract size. Schema strategies clearly differ for local, national, international. Custom schema for global reach. Okay. Question 5. Once an entity is established, KGMIDs or Google Business Profile Optimization, are there specific benchmarks or conditions for expanding its representation across multiple layers of the system? This is really good. I'm going to take a quick bathroom break, and I'll be right back to answer that for her. Okay, and we are back. Next question is, once an entity is established via KGMID or Google Business Profile Optimization, are there specific benchmarks or conditions for expanding its representation across multiple layers of the system? So when we're talking about the grounding of an entity or when it's established, we are talking about multiple things. There are individual entities such as the maps or the Google Business Profile versus, for example, a corporate knowledge panel. They don't all necessarily pop at the same time. Or, for example, a personal knowledge panel that covers the entire page of Google for example, the entity of someone's name. That's a knowledge panel for a personal brand or a personal name in a particular field. What one would see is that they begin to establish and correlate with each other, and they begin to recursively interact and leverage each other over time. And then a rising tide floats all boats, if you get my meaning. Another question is, how do you monitor brand optimization and entity optimization? How do you monitor knowledge panels? Well, they either appear or they don't appear, with some variation. For example, a knowledge panel might pop or rank or come on the first page of Google on the West Coast before it comes to the East Coast. Another very strong indicator is the use of Google Trends, a free application provided by Google, which is not great to track keywords, but it is good to track whether or not something has become an entity. If it's in Google Trends as a topic or a related topic, then it is a sign that the deeper engines of entities underneath Google systems are starting to account for that entity, whether it be a person, a place, or a thing. This is something we monitor regularly, and it's also something we use during the initial audit phase of our entity plus review area. Thank you for your detailed response on this. Key insights, interconnected growth, monitoring the tools and indicators, audit the phase integration. Okay. Next question. Social media integration. How do you measure the success of social media power boosting strategies? Are metrics like engagement, click-through rates, or entities or grounding more important? You bring up a very good point. Perhaps you remember the original video that I showed you of my first WebRing system starting in 2015. The things that we tracked were content reach, return of visitors from that content in the W2 or WR2 layer back to the main site, as well as page rank, or the ability of those second and third party sites, or WR2s, and social profiles to rank on the search engine, creating an effective roadblock for the brand name and or keywords plus brand name. And or is that Oregon brand name and keywords plus brand name. That was before we had entities, which have become another signal for brand impressions throughout the digital universe. It's important to know that one of the major signals that causes entity KGM-IDs and knowledge panels to manifest themselves in various search engine result pages is primarily impressions. This is widely known. Now, there are, of course, a variety of other patented factors, but this is the essence. So those three attributes were of major importance in the early WebRing system. There are more attributes now that matter. So it's best to think of these as overlays. And here are the general signals that matter across the entire network. Clarity about the brand title and entity name, grounding as the ISDNA. So the ISDNA has both a human optimization function, which is clarity by the team and founders of the brand voice, in order to create the correct name of the entity. We really should clarify the fact that there are clients that come to us with no name and no brand, and they're a startup, versus a company that has a well-established brand. There's a lot of bad things that can happen if a client already has a brand, and that brand name is a synonym for something else, or there are other names of it. An example of this is a brand KOS that we had that was competing with a podcast of the same name, KOS Podcast and KOS News. So KOS, our client, was a protein company that sold protein powder. And their knowledge panel was in constant competition with another knowledge panel created by a podcasting company with lots of impressions. This was confusing and difficult to become dominant for KOS protein because KOS protein would always have a knowledge panel next to it. Obviously, we cannot take a $100 million company and ask them to change their name. That would be ridiculous. So when we get to the if-then processes, the if-then statements, the if-then statements, rather, of how to build an ISDNA, one of the prerequisites is the brand new or does it already exist? And we would handle that differently. This is why the very inception of the beginning phase is so important to consider, because even the name of the company matters, and the things that we would do to elevate and ground the entity matter a lot. And this is part of the entity audit to determine the best process for the particular client or service. Once that is established, what matters is technical entity implementation of schema, traffic that comes back to the main site from various satellite properties as discussed in WR2, social media, citations, and press releases. And of course, how much any of that converts is extremely important, so that the distinction can be made between informational and transactional content. And reviews are a huge part of entities because that is the flywheel function of the entire system, which is generally a good indicator of the quality of your product and your community. So technical rankings are also another indicator. Where there is visibility, there tends to be more traffic depending upon the quality of the keyword. However, that traffic doesn't always convert. As answer engine optimization and Google experimental AI begin to appear in the search engine result pages, people are not necessarily clicking on things that they search in the first query. This is changing everything. In fact, a recent study has shown that over 50 to 60% of the search, depending upon the vertical market, does not lead to a click on the first query, but instead invites other queries. Therefore, spending too much time targeting high dollar keywords, which are now only SEO abilities that extremely expensive brands might have. People are better off, especially mid-sized and smaller businesses, focusing on questions long tails, frequently asked questions that could drive and answer customer questions as a helpful guide. So everything considered when the web ring is done is traffic, entity establishment, entities popping or visible on the search engines is what we mean by popping, proper technical backlink citations on social medias that have the exact same title as the Google Business Profile to ground out the entity, and the redistribution of different articles in brand or on-brand content distributed throughout the network, driving customers to frequently ask questions and into the private members area to increase the private members area and then generate a flywheel, and then it continues round and round she goes. That is the business flywheel of the one web ring system. Thank you for the comprehensive explanation. You've clarified social media boosting strategies. Whew. We are 51 minutes in and she's still grilling me. Key metrics for social media success: content reach, extent to which the content on the social platform reaches its intended audience, traffic return to W1. Yep, it's got it. Additional considerations: a clear and precise brand identity, flywheel effect. Social media and other WR2X should feed the cycle of FAQ. Yep. Shift in behavior. Yep. Social media, shift in behavior, the rise of answer engines. That knows about that. So that's why we're training the model, guys. Social media's role in the flywheel. Social media's, yep, amplifier. Good, it's got it. So this thing is going to understand my system better than I do by the time we're done, and may even suggest expansions, changes, or clarifications. The next big question is digital broadcasting customization. How is the digital broadcasting system customized to fit the unique needs of different brands or personal brands? Are there examples you can share? Okay. Yes, there are examples. Whoops. I will not list precise examples here from our client portfolio over the years, but I will make a comprehensive list that we can go over at a different time in a different folder. The main thing to be aware of is that a local small business has no need for a gigantic brand broadcasting platform and/or integrated system. The target market for this is mid-sized to or greater businesses. In fact, even Fortune 100 businesses would do well to use the coherency and logical integration and the resonance suggested by the one web ring system. A local client does not have a need for a giant web ring system in most cases, unless they have a national network of Google Business Profiles and franchise organizations. A personal brand broadcasting station is going to be a little bit different. We should design the one web ring system so it's something that they can control pretty much as a one-man band or a one-man show or an army of one. And even if they have a small team, like a small shop of 3 people, this should be manageable by 1 or 2 people on the team so that they could take turns once it's actually set up. This is why we're teaching how to set this up in the Move 37 area so that the thinking behind the one web ring system can also be integrated into someone's mind. We are not suggesting that someone has to build out hundreds of sites on the WR2 and automate everything that they're doing, but this type of thinking will help them be coherent regardless of the size or the ambition that they have for their organization. Let's see what she says. Thank you for your clear, insightful response. You've outlined critical responses. Now it's repeating back to me. And folks, this is the exhausting part that people don't want to do, but you got to do it. Read what they're saying about something. Okay? Personal brand. Designed for efficiency, simplicity, allowing individuals and small teams. Next question. RSS automation. How does the automation aspect work within the one web ring system? Are there specific tools or workflow that facilitate this automation? Yes, and this is an excellent question. The current reigning RSS master is our own Daryl Osborne, as he is deep in the systems of RSS propagation and knows how to yield the tools for our WebRing clients. As I said before, RSS Masher has been rewritten to Daryl Osborne's standards, or at least a module has been added to make it easy to integrate the standard operating procedures of RSS automation when a client gets to that level, or to that layer rather. Depending upon the size and the speed of the students' and clients' experience, we can get there pretty fast. Also, schema is involved with the RSS, and the content mill, or the creation of content, to go through that schema is important. Additionally, we have other automating procedures that don't necessarily require RSS, but utilize some of the same principles. For example, Blaze.ai can syndicate content on a fairly regular basis using direct connect and application interfaces. During the RSS automation discussions I have with you in a unique chat corresponding to that in its own folder, we will delve into all of these systems, including train you on data with the most up-to-date procedures that I can get from Daryl Osborne and or other systems. So we'll get there. Schema and content creation. So we're getting Daryl into the answer engine here. Alternative syndication. Systems like Blaze AI provide complementary automation capabilities, leveraging direct applications. Yep. With this, we've completed the clarifying questions, and I've absorbed, look at this, guys, I've absorbed all the key points, and now we can proceed to software correlation test as planned. This is very great, and I'm going to stop the Loom video and compile it, and I think we should begin the next layer in a new chat. When I open a new chat, I will copy and paste the last request of software clarification points, and we will create our own unique thread for that. Does that sound good? Okay, and that's it. So now that I'm managing the memory a little bit better, I'm able to do way more complicated and actually complex training with the model. All right, I'll see you on the next video.